you. It's as always a pleasure to be with you all and to tasting some wine. Um, so I picked Portugal because every year we usually we take a store trip, and we go off and kind of immerse ourselves in the food and wine culture of a region. And this year we spent 10 days in Portugal, and so this is sort of a recap of some of the things that we did and saw, but most importantly, a reminder that everybody should be drinking Portuguese wine. It is Jack is 100% correct. It's I mean, it's really, there's so many reasons to drink it, and I'll hopefully I'll enumerate all of them. But um, it's a place that has really seen a lot of winemaking history. It they've been growing grapes in Portugal for about 2,000 years. And it really was because of where they're located. I mean, Spain experienced some of this same kind of development, but you had an area that sat along the Mediterranean. So the Mediterranean served as a the travel turnpike. It allowed you to move product around, and particularly the Etruscans. The Greeks did as well, but the Etruscans before that were really good at trading. And so wine has been kind of on the radar in Portugal for literally thousands of years. At around 2000, around 1000 BC, this was something that was used as currency. And so
Yeah.
this region, I mean, the region of Portugal, is is one that's got unique characteristics and then similarities to the Iberian Peninsula. I mean, Spain has a lot. They have hundreds of grapes that are indigenous to Spain. Portugal has hundreds of grapes that are indigenous to Portugal. Some of the grapes that they work with have Portuguese names. They're more known in Spain, but they changed the name simply because, different language. But they have, because of their lengthy history, because of all of the trade that went through here. I mean, again, you had the Etruscans, you had the Celts, you had the Moors, you had the Greeks, you had the Romans, you had a lot of people moving through this area. And I there must have been a lot of common sense back then, maybe more so than today, because it seemed like using a river to move stuff was a good idea. And so this river that is behind me, in on the Portuguese side, is called the Douro. It actually begins in the foothills in Spain, where it's the Duero. So the Duero begins in the mountains of Sierra Cantabria, makes its way down, winds its way through a little piece of the eastern edge, I mean the western edge of Spain, makes it into Portugal, where it continues winding through these very steep valleys. The valley behind me, so this is the Douro Valley. Sorry, not the best picture, but that is the Douro Valley. Um, it is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They've been producing wine here, specifically in the Douro, for hundreds of years, using the same grapes that they're using today. So lots of tradition. Because it is so steep, it has to be manually farmed. So a lot of the old school ways still exist. You can see behind me, they'll intersperse olive groves, because create monocultures are generally not good. So olives grow very well in this area as well. So they'll impose olive groves in the middle of the vineyards to kind of break up the monoculture. Again, great approach to agriculture, and one that the winemakers these days still look to. But so Portugal, again, long time history, many grapes that they have in their arsenal, many grapes that they have in their arsenal that are not familiar to most people. And for wine drinkers, that's a huge advantage, because if a wine is let's take Cabernet, you can pretty much put dishwater in a bottle and label it Cabernet, and it will sell. And because it has a recognizable brand, the Cab, Cabernet, I know what that is. I'll buy it anywhere. Um, and unfortunately, like I said, there's great Cabs, certainly, most certainly. But there's also stuff that really just relies on the name. And so where Portuguese wines benefit the wine drinker is that most people don't know what these grapes are. They really don't have an awareness of kind of the totality of the offerings of Portugal. Um, it's a hard language to master. It's one, I mean, a friend of ours who is in Lisbon. We saw her, Christy. By the way, for anybody who's listening and knows Christy, she did have her baby boy 2 days ago, named Raphael. So, but she said, Portuguese is sort of like maybe a Russian speaking Spanish with marbles in his mouth. And that's really kind of an apt description, because I don't speak very fluent Spanish, but I can understand much of what I'm listening to, or at least the context. Portuguese, not a chance. So when you see these wines in a wine shop, the names are hard to pronounce. They're unfamiliar. I mean, outside of the first wine that we'll taste, Vino Verde, green wine, kind of you have some hint, but in most cases you just have to trust that it's good wine. And the great thing is, oftentimes it is. It that the culture loves wine themselves, so you go into whatever restaurant. The worst wine I think I had in Portugal, I would say, was just okay. It was never bad, ever. But the best wines that I had were absolutely spectacular, were truly stunning wines, and not very expensive relative to what we pay for other varietals. So lots and lots of value. The Portuguese love to eat. They have great culinary traditions and foodways, and so you pair that with their food, and now you're just and scenery. I guess you've got scenery behind me, but there's, again, lots and lots of reasons to experiment and try out Portuguese wines. So the first wine that we're going to have is called Vino Verde, and it is the region is actually north of Porto. I mean, it gets close, but it doesn't actually go into the city of Porto, but north of Porto, and it sort of sitting on top of Portugal, um, close to the ocean. You definitely get the moderating winds from the ocean that cool off the vineyards. So cooler climate, which is why Vino Verde. Now they do make red wine, red, white, and rosé. We're tasting the white, and that's really the most famous. But they do make other styles. But the grapes are fairly crisp. They have a good amount of acidity because they're, again, grown fairly close to the ocean, and in a cool region. The region that we're going to taste today, and I even had to pull this up on my phone because I knew that I could not even come close to pronouncing it. So the region at the bottom of the bottle, Minhaui Melgaço, would never have guessed that was Mankawa Melaga.
Okay,
Yeah.
let me jump in a second because I did spend some time in Brazil. It's not
Yeah.
quite the same Portuguese, but it's menção e malaço. The squiggle under the C means it's pronounced like an S,
Yeah.
and the AO is a kind of nasal ow.
Is that the Brazil? Because the funny thing is, I've heard
There
that
is a big difference
Brazilians.
between there is a difference,
Yeah, yeah,
but
yeah.
that is not one of them.
Okay,
So in
okay,
both
okay.
countries, although you'll hear Vino Verde, it would generally be pronounced vino because the
Yeah,
NH
yeah,
is
yeah,
like an
sure.
Enya from Spanish.
Right, right.
And that's
Yep.
the end of my expertise, and I'm going to
Yeah.
go back quiet. Sorry.
Yeah. No, no, but that's I mean it really um there and Jasper, there are a lot of sh and it
Yeah,
there are
it's
a lot.
hard.
It's a hard language to grasp. It doesn't, they also drop syllables. And so you know, I mean, I
Yeah,
guess
there's a
I guess
lot of local because all
absolutely.
across a person from Rio can't understand a person from the south of Brazil, just like we can't always understand Southerners
Yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah,
You know,
right,
same
right.
thing.
Yeah. No, I mean it is. So I as much again, I love Portugal very much, but I the language is the most challenging that I of Europe that I've encountered. It's hard. It's the most difficult to for me to hear. Um, so this region is actually a sub-region of the larger region of Vino Verde. So the larger region, like I said, it sits above Porto, and Porto is um, not seeing a map, but I would say within the top third, but maybe bottom of the top third of Portugal. And so Vino Verde sits on the very top, and this particular region sits on the very top, close to Spain, so to the east of the country, bordering Spain. But again, cool climate region. The grapes that are used, there are generally six grapes. Most of them are not ones that we see elsewhere. They do use Albarino. Again, it's spelled with an HO. But the grapes here, Trecadura, Arinto, they're all fairly crisp white grapes that again benefit from that cool region. So the style of wine, Vino Verde can be made in a number of different styles. Probably the most common is the one that has a little bit of a spritz to it. And the spritz, it's not, we wouldn't characterize this as a sparkling wine, because generally speaking, it has around 1 atmosphere of pressure, which is very not very much. 3 and 4 atmospheres, two and 3 atmospheres, you're getting maybe Moscato, and 4 to 5, you're getting champagne. So it's just lightly sparkling. Originally, that was done. It was sort of a wine. It was sort of a wine fault that they decided they liked. When when Vino Verde was originally popularized, they left in it a residual sediment, a dead yeast, and this actually caused a secondary fermentation. And they I mean, the two things that they eventually decided the one thing they decided that they didn't like was they didn't like the turbidity of the wine. The wine was very cloudy. You could see the sediment in the wine. So the bottles were generally dark or opaque. And but they decided they liked the bubbles. So today, simply because it's really hard to get a precise re-fermentation, they actually don't use that method in most cases. They will basically sterile filter the wine so that it doesn't happen, and then they will add they will inject a little bit of CO2, through in the bottling process. So, but this lightly fizzy white, it can be still, doesn't have to be fizzy, but again, more popular in the still in the spritzy style. Very crisp, green apple, lime skin. In fact, this particular subregion is kind of known for their kind of green apple note, and it really is in this one really popping. But let me taste. Yeah. Um, Citrus, tart tree fruits, apple, maybe some underripe nectarine or peach. Um, and I saw this in the in I think it was might have even been on the back of the bottle, reference to ginger. I actually do get a little bit of ginger in this, but just all the flavors, very clean, very refreshing. When it's really hot outside, this just gets slugged down. I mean, it just goes down so easily. It's fairly low in alcohol, so it's a, you know, it's kind of one of those luncheon wines. You can you can pretty much kill a bottle and not be completely polluted. Um, but just really a delicious, refreshing wine. And it, you know, to me, it just it has that, you know, kind of conjures images of sitting on a beach, you know, drinking a really cold Vino Verde or overlooking the beach and just enjoying kind of the ocean. You'll see a lot of references to the ocean on a lot of the producers, the, you know, the producers of Vino Verde. They will often reference ocean, the sea, beach, things like that, just to kind of play with that image. But that it really is, it's just kind of a sitting on the beach kind of wine. Um, Thoughts on this one?
Anybody, and there's not that many. If you want to unmute and make a comment, I, I, it was interesting to me because a lot of the Vino Verdes I've had, to me, are crisper,
Hmm.
and this one is. I hate to use the word because it's not really right, but it's almost creamier, and I think it's a little
Yeah,
more fruit, a little more
yeah.
apple. I thought a
Hmm.
little apricot or peach,
Yeah.
and in my to my taste, it goes great with food, and I really like it compared to a lot of that I've drank. Some of them, the crisp ones are nice, really nice for sitting out on a porch a hot day, but this one is a little smoother, a little
Hmm.
creamier than what I'm used to, and it's delicious, I think.
Yeah, no, there's I would say that's a good way of describing it. I mean, there are some that are, I mean, almost like club soda and lime. They're so lean. And some of the bubbles, I mean, this one is a 2022, and generally speaking, I would probably favor. I wish this were a 23 in theory. I generally like Vino Verde within a year of the current year. And so it is actually possible that you know, when it was released 6 months or so ago, it was a lot. It was, you noticed more of that brightness, but I really like where it is right now. It does have more texture. um, the flavor, I mean, I'm still tasting the fruit on the tongue, so it has a viscosity that's gonna linger a little bit. I really like that. But yeah, there, I mean it, and but you know, even this, I mean, what's cool about it is, you know, most Vino Verdes you can find really good quality for 15 bucks. Um, you can find great quality at 20 bucks, but you don't really need to go much further. I mean, the entire portfolio will kind of fit in that price tier. And it just, again, I mean, it's a very food friendly, guzzleable, shareable, sit on the beach and enjoy this wine kind of wine. And yeah, with food, I mean, obviously, the Portuguese do like a fair amount of ocean faring things. And so seafood really pairs nicely, but charcuterie, olives, meats and cheeses, breads, oils, things like that. I mean, just very casual food. Just really shines with this stuff. And we, while we were there, our group did some really respectable bit damage to the Vino Verde stock that we were close to. It just seemed like, and in fact, in some places, the restaurants were just sort of amused with us because I think we probably should have just kept it simple and said, just bring us each a bottle. Uh, that'll save you time. Just put it right there, big straw. Um, and but it, yeah, so Vino Verde, I would say, um, my general preference is, again, look for wines that are within a year. And this, had I not tasted this before I bought it, I probably would have not picked it. Um, because of the date. Uh, the Vino Verde, green wine. I mean, it really is. It's supposed to be a really young, youthful expression of wine, and um, it it if it certainly the worst thing that I've discovered is when there's a lot of non-vintage Vino Verde, because they do produce a fair amount of it. And there is a fair amount of non-vintage. Now we do bring in non-vintage wines, but do keep an eye on them. I mean, we will routinely taste them just to make sure that whatever the style is at the moment is not one that we don't want to take credit for. Um, because I mean, as this style of wine ages, it gets a little nutty. It gets kind of sort of cheesy. I mean, you can kind of feel the freshness of the fruit fading and developing some kind of more secondary, tertiary flavors that are not. I would say they're not fresh. They're not bright. So yeah, I mean, keep an eye on vintage on stuff. But there are great examples of this wine. I wish we could get more of them, quite honestly. It's I think in our market, the challenge is, as I described, people are less familiar with the wines of Portugal and with the styles, and even Vino Verde, which has a great following and a lot of people are familiar with. Um, it may not be the first thing they think of when they're thinking about wines in the summertime. And so my distributors will often bring in things selectively. This is not, like I said, this is not a wine you'd probably want to have 2 years down the road. So if you brought in a quantity of the wine, you would want to make sure it's sold within a good window. So I wish there were more access to it, because while we were in Portugal, we tasted many different styles of Vino Verde, but really just great. I mean, all delicious. So any final thoughts on this, or we can switch to the red.
Yeah,
All right.
I made a mistake. I didn't get mine in the fridge fast enough, and I think this needs to be chilled more than what I did. And that was my only error, I think. But I think
I Yeah, no, I think, I mean, um there are certain wines, and they really kind of depend. Sometimes it's a case by case basis, because, for example, I think there are certain wines that rosés, for example, some rosés you can have just hovering above freezing and they're delicious, and other rosés, they really get muted until they're almost room temperature. I mean, there are certain there have even been white wines like Sauvignon Blancs where I found the most impressive presentation of the wine was when it was about maybe 68 degrees. Vino Verde, though, loves a chill. I mean, if you discover that it's too cold, you just wait for it to warm up. But it is when it is ice cold and perspiration's beating up on the glass. um yeah, it's just so good. Yeah, no, please, I would say, yeah, a good chill on your Vino Verde is not, won't hurt it. um but so we're gonna switch over to the red. And this red is actually from not specifically the region behind me, but this red is a Douro red. And the wines of the Douro, I mean, it's an interesting time, because the this region, the production of port is very. I mean, this is the region of port. So port is made in the Douro and then brought down the river to the houses that age the port along the Douro in the city of Porto. And so the wines have always, I mean, they have a huge local following. They still produce an ocean of pork, but more and more of it is staying in Portugal. And that's leaving a lot of these very well managed, very established vineyards with maybe not a market to sell. And so we're seeing a lot more still wines. I mean, they've always made still wines in the Douro. Um, but the promotion of still wines today, I think, has grown as the consumption of the fortified wine. So port is a fortified wine that it is made as a very a sweet base wine, and then before the yeast is finished consuming the sugar, a neutral grape based brandy is added, and it brings the alcohol up to about 20%, kills off the yeast, and brings it to that sweet, um, more boozy style of wine. However, if you let those same grapes ferment to dryness, so allow the yeast to consume all the sugar, you end up with a lot with wine that has many of the same flavors. Dark cherry, dark berry, you know, floral notes, lavender, lilac, spice tones. You get all those things that you typically find, sometimes chocolate, tobacco, things like that. Things that you get in really good port, but now it's not sweet, and it's maybe 15% or 14% versus 20. So the quality of the Douro Reds that we're seeing right now is really, really good. I mean, in some cases it may be the difference of, well, the winemaker didn't feel that the fruit that was intended to go into $150 bottle of port, it wasn't where it needed to be, and so it gets sorted, and now it's in a $20 bottle of still red. The fruit was still pretty good. I mean, the quality of that fruit was not subpar by any means. It just wasn't the kind of quality that they needed for a bottle that they were going to sell for a fair price, fair amount of money. Again, it's the grapes that are used here. Most of the grapes are port grapes. Kind of the star, the leading actor is Touriga Nacional. And Touriga is a thick-skinned red grape, really tannic, develops a lot of structure, dark fruits, plum, cherry. It's a grippy wine, and then those are blended with other grapes that would typically show up in port. There's a variant of Tempranillo, um, uh, actually several indigenous grapes to this area, but they all fill in a role. Some give color, some give alcohol, some give aromatics, some give mouthfeel, and when they're all placed together, as they have been for hundreds of years. I mean, this is really a recipe they know very well. That when it's all placed together, really just a very complete wine. Lots going on, and again, not a premium price. Premium winemaking region. I mean, hundreds of years, multi-generational families making it. The quality, I mean, this is a crazy thing. The day we were in the Douro Valley, I mean, this is, in wine, we talk a lot about microclimates. For example, like, let's see if I can do this. So the microclimate up there, it really is hard to do this, like, as a weatherman. I can't. Yeah, there we go. The microclimate up there, obviously, being higher up, more direct exposure to the sun, is going to be different than the vineyards that are down here, closer to the water. The water is draining down toward them, so they're getting different amounts of water. One of the things that we saw, and I wish I could have taken a picture of, is if you kind of behind my head, there is a mountain range that separates the valley from basically the ocean. And it was pouring rain, it was dark, it was blustery. We go through a mountain tunnel and we come out and it looks like this. I mean, the tunnel, I think, is 3 miles long, so it's a fairly long tunnel. But that mountain range served as a rain, it created a rain shadow. I mean, it blocked the moisture, you could see the clouds just kind of curling over the mountains, but they weren't making it very far. So this region has everything it needs. Great temperature change. I mean, the days are warm, the nights are cold or cool. Proximity to water, which grapes love that. Elevation, so the soil at the top of the hill is going to be very different from the soil at the bottom. By the way, the dominant soil of this area is granite and schist. So it's fairly rocky. The vines struggle a lot for water and for nutrients. And but the fact that it's not getting rain all the time, it's not getting the water all the time, and when grapes have to struggle, they naturally dedicate more of their energy to quality over quantity. And so it was very cool to just watch kind of this wall stop moisture from getting over here. It truly was like a visual thing. You could see that wall. So yeah, I mean, plum, cherry, little black pepper, barrel spice, good tannic structure, medium long finish, um, all qualities of really, really good wine. And with food, you apply a little bit of fat to something like this, and that dryness, that edgy dryness on the wine just kind of disappears, and you taste more of the food, you taste more of the wine. I guess what I love about this is it really is it's hundreds of years of R&D to get to this glass. And as long as they've been making wine in this region, uh, the ancients were not drinking wine as good as we drink today, for sure. And that's that, we're kind of at a great position. We've got all the past helping to guide good practices and styles and whatnot. Oh, and I should point out, actually, this is kind of crazy. Um, the wines of the Douro have been, um, again, at one time it was currency. So they've been favored for so long that actually I want to say 1756 or 7 or 8, somewhere in that general range. um, the Spanish government, the king actually said this region is a protected region. So, we talk a lot about DOC regions or DOCG regions. This was a protected growing region for wine, um, starting in basically the mid 1700s. So they did identify that this region had something special. It had something um, that what I mean of all of the regions in Portugal and Spain, and they were trading, so they had other things to enjoy. This one stood out, even back to 1756, 7, 8, in that general range. Um, yeah, I dig this a lot. This is cool. Questions, thoughts about this guy?
Kathleen threw in a question here. The label description says that the grapes were planted in shale soils. How does that affect the wine? She said it's really delicious.
Yeah, yeah. So it depends kind of where on the hill or the valley you're sourcing, but um, I want to say God, they talked about this. I want to say maybe shale is on this side and granite. It there. I mean, you can see actually as you drive by, you can see that there is. I mean, that the layers, kind of striated layers of shale going down there. But yes, I mean, the Mosel Valley, the Rheingau in Germany, same thing. They have, and actually similar story. The Romans were kind of the ones who discovered Germany's great wine regions. But when you have a soil structure that is limiting, where the roots, they grapevines are really, really, really good at what they do, but they have to be left to do that. And there's a winemaker in California. I don't think we've ever done his wines, but in Napa Valley, named John Williams. And John owns a winery called Frog's Leap, and
Oh,
he was one of
yeah,
the early promoters
Frog's
of
Leap
organic farming. And his
in there.
his saying was, you know, if you make your vines dependent upon you, they will always be dependent upon you. And these older regions where you have really complex soils, um, they figured out if we make these vines, you know, worm their way down through shale, they're going to find minerals, they're going to find water, they're going to get what they need, but it's also going to tell the vine that, you know, we're not in super fertile land. We're not. I mean, I would say one of the challenges, I mean, as an aside, one of the challenges that a lot of grape growers in our region have, quite honestly, is that the soil that the grapes are growing in is really fertile.
Just because you
It's
like white
really
wine.
fertile, and so it's hard to get the grapes to struggle. And when they don't struggle, they will produce. Quality goes down, quantity goes up. But yeah, this region is really the opposite. I mean, if you just looking at the fact that it's terraced, I mean, water is going to wash downhill, so that's going to take with it some soil, and the ancients also, actually, it's kind of cool. The ancients also were very um thoughtful about how they planted things. Like, they probably knew, in the vineyards behind me, that maybe a little piece of land that sits close to the water, that's relatively flat, that's where you plant your garden, because all of the soil is washed off the hillside, and that's probably, being maybe some flooding from the river has created silt. So that's where you want to grow plant, garden vegetables and things like that. In the region of Vino Verde, there are some areas where, and again, it's mostly tradition, rather. They will trellis the vines to go up on these pergolas that are 10, 12 feet above the soil. And the reason was they wanted to plant other things below the trellises. So it was like, why would we waste all this space? We'll let the vines go tall, and then we'll plant underneath. But yeah, I mean, it really is the sensitivity to, don't plant what you want, plant what wants to be here. Listen to the surround. I mean, it's just a very um a thoughtful way of being a farmer. I mean, there are a lot of producers today who literally pick what they want to grow, and then hope that, if they have land already, hope that that land works well for it, or goes out and finds just the land. I mean, the better producers are doing that. They're saying, I want to grow this. I just want to grow this particular grape or these grapes. So I'm going to find the best place to grow them. There are others that are just, nah, I got this land, I'm growing whatever grows here. In this case, I mean, we had literally hundreds of years of trial and error and experimenting, and what grows well where. And they really, I mean, I love wine for many reasons. I love wine very much for the fact that there are times where you realize that everything that they learned back then is still as accurate and as correct. And that's just amazing. I mean, nothing stays the same, but some things do. When you get the right answer the first time, it just is the right answer. And I would say, in this region, the way they're growing the grapes they are growing, the way they're making the wine, everything is as dialed in as it can be. I love these wines.
These are great. We paired some charcuterie and olives and with red wine and things like sopressata and
Yeah.
prosciutto and
Mhm.
hard salami and those kind of things that are, like you said, greasy or really great with that. With the white wine, we went with a pasta with sardines
Yeah.
because I
Yeah.
can't
Sure.
eat anything from that peninsula without eating
Yep.
sardines.
Yes. Or cod or bacalao. Yeah,
Yeah.
they love. It's funny, the Portuguese love their bacalhau, which is it's a basically they'll take cod, they'll salt it, it'll dehydrate, they'll age it, and then they'll rehydrate it and use it. And it's funny because and they're fairly honest about this. Most of the bacalhau, the vast majority of the bacalhau, the cod that is used in Portugal, actually comes from Norway, Sweden, Denmark. It's not theirs, and actually that even is a cool story because the reason that is that the Vikings actually came down to Portugal, and they developed trade routes. So they were like, "Yeah, you guys have some really good cod. We're in. Sign us up. We got this thing called bacalhau." Uh, yeah, I guess it would be hard to you'd have to figure out which came first. But yeah, sardines. We were there. Unfortunately, well, probably fortunately, because apparently it's sort of chaotic. But Lisbon has a festival every year, first or second week of June, where that's it. Sardines. That's everybody shows up. Our friend was saying, yeah, a week ago, if you'd walked down the street, you would have just seen people with like little hibachis on the side of the street, grilling sardines, selling sardines, pouring liquor. You just eat sardines and drink and celebrate being from Lisbon. And we missed it by a week. It sounded I was probably glad we did because I think it does sort of gridlock because people just take over streets and they become a mass street party. But yeah, sardines are definitely on the menu in Portugal.
And by the way, Steve happens to sell tin sardines. I'm just throwing that
Oh,
in.
yeah. So
Just
no,
saying.
I thank you for the tease because I want to okay, Portuguese wine, I'm a big fan. Spanish wine, huge fan. I will also say tinned fish is awesome. It seems weird, and I will admit, I mean, I love exploring the world kind of at the dinner table. I will admit the first time that I was introduced to tinned fish, I was like, that's kind of like the 99-cent chicken of the sea. And it absolutely is not. The quality of seafood that they put into cans is truly top shelf. It seems weird. Why would you do that? Well, the answer is actually pretty simple. Here's the thing. This particular fish is at its peak season in this month and that month. So what do you do for the other months? Well, you fish when they're at their peak season, then you put them into a can and you use them differently. And so, I mean, I have a great wholesaler of tinned fish, and I have not pulled the trigger myself, but they have it would be around $80 a single can of clams from an island off the coast of Spain. I just have to know what an $80 can of clams tastes like. I can't even imagine what an $80 can of clams tastes like. But I know that, I mean, I've been in Michelin restaurants where those tinned fish have been on menus. But yeah, I mean they throughout Spain and Portugal, you know, peak season canned fish is absolutely a thing. And don't be afraid. I mean, be selective about what you buy, but no, you open a can of tuna belly. It's not Starkist. It is, I mean, it really, it's the flakes come out in huge chunks. Um, they're buttery. They have amazing depth. It's even weird, and I've not gone all in on this yet, but it's even a thing to buy vintage dated tinned fish. So if you have a particular, an anniversary year, there are stores that will sell you fish from that year. It is shelf stable. So it is, they're not selling you something that will make you sick. It just seems sort of weird, that I would deliberately choose to get, you know, canned fish from 5 years ago. But it is a thing, and that is an option. But no, definitely. I mean, you can make. I mean, if you like things like I love linguine and clams, pasta al vongole. Generally, I would much prefer to have fresh clams, but if I can't, um, you get razor clams in brine. They are stunning. They have they've I mean the Spanish and the Portuguese have really figured out exactly how to prepare, you know, fish in a can. And you can get some really crazy stuff. I mean, sea snails and octopus and all sorts of fish. Some you're familiar with, some you're not. Some of them are in oil. A lot of them are in olive oil. Some of them are in kind of a sea brine. Some of them are flavored. There is in Portugal, because of their connection to Brazil. They produce a hot sauce called piri piri, and so you'll see a lot of um, various seafood preparations, in a kind of a piri piri tomato sauce. By the way, we had a perfect example of I mean a perfect illustration while we were there. One night, several of us did go, and because how we were in Lisbon, and they have some really rock star restaurants. We went to a Michelin restaurant, had about a 3.5 hour dinner. It was spectacular. A day or two later, we were in a family run place that our friend who lives there had suggested we go. She said, just go here, order the chicken. It's just grilled chicken. That's all it is. I mean, it was piri piri chicken. That's the style. But grilled chicken, get this bottle of wine. It'll blow your mind. And it truly did. I don't know what they did to that chicken, but I sent a text to my friend. I said, um, I enjoyed that chicken, that roasted chicken with, again, a marinade, a sauce that I could not figure out, but that chicken was as marvelous as the expensive many hour dinner that we had the night before, for different reasons. I mean, they were both spot on fine dining. And I always tell people, fine dining has nothing to do with how much you pay at the end of the night. It really doesn't. Fine dining can be found anywhere, and you know it when you see it. And yeah, this was just a little family run joint that had the most amazing chicken. Uh, they offered a full chicken when we sat down, and we're like, oh my God, that's a lot of chicken. I could have plowed through a full chicken, probably even, knocked off a good portion of somebody else's. It was that kind. It was so good. But we had it. It was slightly the piri piri. It's a Caribbean chili, I think, South American chili. Hard to find. I actually did find piri piri sauce. So we have little bottles. I think they're like $5 a piece, but we did find some piri piri sauce. Um, uh, through some purveyors. But yeah, it was just a good free range chicken with this particular chili, some bay leaf, some garlic, some olive oil. You kind of rub it, and then you cook it really, for about 45 minutes over a charcoal fire, and it is stunning. Yeah, really good stuff.
Brazil
And
uses the sauce a little more toward the north of the country,
mm,
and they use it a lot on seafood. So
the
shrimp
piri
is a
piri.
big thing in northern Brazil,
Mm.
and that sauce is like on all of it. Really
Yeah.
good.
Well, I mean, I love the uniqueness of chilies, and it is it's one that I wish we could get more. I would love to work with it more just because it has this very I mean it's spicy but not overly spicy. It's got fruitiness but not too much. I mean, the most, what I recognized, what I thought of most was this chicken has just so much chicken flavor. But that little pop of heat at the end
Yeah.
just made you want to crush another
Yeah.
chicken.
Yeah,
Oh, so
it
good.
doesn't mask it at all like some
No,
peppers.
no, and
And
I've looked at recipes since we've been back, and there's some recipes that are like, oh, if you can't find piri piri, use chipotle. I would absolutely disagree with that. The smoke from the chipotle would be completely different. I mean, yeah, it's there, with the right ingredients, you only need a few, but you do need the right ingredients.
yeah.
And yeah,
As
good
another
stuff.
pusher of tinned fish, I will tell those people who like think of some of that stuff as a little tough to like put on a cracker and just eat. Making pasta with it is like
Yeah.
the easiest thing in the world. You boil a little pasta, throw in some pesto, throw in a bunch of Parmesan, and throw in the fish.
Hmm.
And you'll have, and obviously a little white wine.
Yes.
And
Obviously.
you'll yeah, obviously, sorry. And it's so easy and it's so delicious. And it's filling, but it's light and it's great. So as another pusher of tin fish,
Yeah.
you don't, I don't know if I can eat octopus. I don't know if I can eat this or whatever.
Yeah.
Throw some clams, throw some oysters in with the pasta, and I think you'll find it delightful. I hope so.
Well, and I mean they really a lot of, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that is kind of been brought into the American market that really don't eat. It really is that bad.
Yeah.
Don't eat it. It's like you don't need to like lick the bottom of the ocean. Um, and there's some really funky things. I mean, but that's the space that we're coming from, and it's unfortunate because it really is the opposite in this area. The reason that they're canning it is because they know their fisheries so well that there are only certain months that you can get this fish. And yes, it's spectacular when it's fresh, but what about the other probably 9 to 10 months that you might want it? And yeah, I mean well, I mean there are other cultures that use this too. I mean, for example, I mean salade niçoise, the French preparation. I mean, they're not sticking chicken of the sea on the salad. I mean, it is stuff that, I mean, the French have their own tinned fish world where spectacular, I mean, stuff that literally would be sold at a fine dining restaurant, splayed out on an ice case where you're like, "Oh my God, I want that for dinner." And instead of cooking it that day, they put it into a can with some flavoring. Again, oil, water, some other seasoning spice, and preserve it forever, or for at least the next long enough as it takes. I mean, yeah, I probably should back off because it's not a forever thing, but it'll last longer than you will need it to. And yeah, I mean, it's high, crazy high protein. I mean, a can of like tuna belly, it probably runs maybe $9, $10. 20 to 25 grams of protein just in that little tin. And yeah, it really, it can, I mean, to Jack's point, you can make a very, very simple pasta, 4 or 5 ingredients, and it will blow your mind. Like, you will, throw some fresh herbs on there. You oftentimes you kind of want to give some freshness aspect to it just to kind of liven it up. But yeah, it is. I mean, in northern Spain, in the Basque region, I mean, you go into restaurants and literally an appetizer will just be a slice of baguette with a piece of canned tinned fish sitting on there, maybe some aioli or something like that. But it's just that. That's it. Baguette, and they're usually more like kind of like hoagie rolls. They're not, I mean, they're it's not the greatest bread you've ever had. It's just there to serve as a vessel for as a media to transfer this delicious fish. So yeah, tin fish in Spanish or Portuguese wine. Enjoy it because it really is one of life's true pleasures. They know what they're doing.
So Kathleen is on the way to your store to buy peri peri sauce. Did you get any while you're there that she can buy it there?
Yeah, no, I so when I came back, I was still I'm still haunted by this damn chicken. Because I they like my friend was like, nah, it's peri peri chicken, but whatever they're doing is different. I mean, they do something. Of course they do something. They're not going to tell you what they do, you know. I was kind of funny. She's like, and they'll probably yell there. It's a family run place, and they'll probably have like a fight in the dining area. And I'm like, oh, that's even better. I would go there just for that. But the their peri peri chicken haunted me. So I came back and I was like, I gotta find something. And I did find a Portuguese purveyor through another supplier that has the peri peri sauce. What I really want to track down is peri peri oil. I'm assuming it's just olive oil with the peri peri chili, because we had some of that at this restaurant that had the chicken.
I'm wondering if when they make the chicken, they don't do something like Brazilians do with the churrasco, where it's grilled, but they're constantly basting it with rock salt and water. And when you
Yeah.
wipe all that off, you get the salt like it was uh what do you call it when you put meat in salt water? It just
Marinated.
it's no, yeah, it's marinated in the
Yeah,
salt,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
but it doesn't taste salty. It just
yeah.
keeps the chicken very moist. And I'm wondering if that's part of how they cook it. I don't
I'm
know.
gonna play around.
Yeah. Let
Actually
me know
that
your recipe when you get
no,
it.
but that the thing is though, that is, in kind of sleuthing out recipes like that, the easiest way is to do what you did, which is, well, what would have motivated them? Well, their history in Brazil.
Yeah.
So what do they do in Brazil? Like, I mean, there are things that seem out of place. I mean, why should Portugal be promoting Viking food?
Yeah.
Well, it's their history. And their connection to South America really has infiltrated their food culture. I mean, they have ingredients in there that would not be there had they not decided that they, as Portuguese, were gonna sail around the world. Um, and that's interesting. I'll bet I'm gonna mess around with that technique because um that the 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 chicken was crispy on the outside, but super
Moist in the
juicy on
inside.
the yeah.
Yeah.
And if you were basting with salt water, it would dehydrate that first layer of chicken. It would dry
Exactly.
that part out and therefore seal all the juice in. So
Yeah.
that could be.
Yeah. It's amazing when I watch them because they like dump a ton of rock salt on it. And then they
Yeah,
use palm leaves to kind of keep it wet and move it
yeah,
around and
yeah.
then rub it all off. And then when you eat the chicken, you don't taste the salt. It's just
Right.
delicious. It's crazy.
Well, actually, that's the palm leaves. So in Portugal, typically they use like parsley leaves, but they
Yeah.
they they
Same.
will use something. They will not use a brush. It will
Yeah.
be
No, it'll be
some
something
other
vegetal.
device.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right, we're getting near the end. So anybody have any more comments or questions? I've been hogging all the conversation as usual. You like the wines? You don't like the wines? You ready to go to Portugal?
Heck yeah.
Steve's
Oh,
taking everybody. This is
I'll
this
tell you
is
what.
a this is one of those moments. Look under your chair, and there's a ticket to
Yes.
Portugal.
You go to Portugal and you go to Portugal. Yeah. Yeah.
But
I wish we could do. That's my dream.
yeah.
Someday I will surprise the retroactive with free trip. Yeah.
We're gonna hold you to that.
Yeah.
All
The
right.
someday maybe a ways away, but hold me to it.
Okay,
Perfect.
well, let me take the last couple minutes or the extra couple minutes overtime. And I really want to thank Steve. I've learned
Yeah.
so much in the 18 months I've been working with him, and I really appreciate it. It's enhanced not only my drinking, and I don't mean just the volume because that was already enhanced. It enhanced my drinking and my cooking, and I really appreciate it. Next month, you'll have a new visionary running this Zoom, but hopefully, if I'm in town or even if I'm out of town, I'll be here, sticking my nose in everything. But I really want to thank Steve. We've had a wonderful experience, and I want to add that we have the Sundowner coming up. I'm not sure the date, still before the end of this month. So for those of you who have signed up for that, and I'll be checking in to see if the wait list, anybody can move up on that. Steve's handling that, and he will become an expert on gin.
Wow.
Oh, I
So
love
that'll
gin
be a
is
great.
one of my favorites.
He's mowing his garden to bring us herbs to add to it, and
Yeah.
we'll have a lot of stuff. So that'll be a great evening as well, and I'll definitely be there for that as part of that. So once again, thank everybody. Thank you, Steve. It's really been a
Well,
genuine
and
pleasure.
Jack, thank you. I truly do enjoy hanging out with y'all. And Jack, you've done a great job. You're definitely you have there are people who kind of see the world through rose colored glasses, and you are one of them. And I mean, I probably need to start a cult because I do I do genuinely believe that the world would be a better place if we spent more time eating and drinking and hanging out with friends. So
I'll drink.
yeah,
I'll toast to
no.
that.
So dude, you're awesome, man. I appreciate
All
that.
right, folks. All right, enough of this patting each other on the back. We'll see you all down the line, one way or the other. Lots of events still coming up in July that I'll be involved in. So thank you all for joining us. Have a great evening. Thank you, Steve, again.
Be well.
Enjoy the rest
Cheers
of your
to everyone.
bottle of wine.
Thank
You
you
don't need to
all.
refrigerate it if
Yeah.
you finish it.
Yeah,
All right.
no, it saves putting away. Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers.